Welcome to the Sourcing Industry Landscape podcast, hosted by Dawn Tura, CEO and President of Sig.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from today. I'm so excited that joining me in the studio is Stephany Lapierre. Now, Stephany is the founder and CEO of TealBook. She is also one of SCMA's 100 most influential women in the Canadian supply chain and has received repeated recognition as a female tech entrepreneur. After studying the business impact of costly and inefficient gaps between enterprise buyers and suppliers, she launched TealBook to upgrade the application of supplier information through machine learning effectively and efficiently and increase innovation and value creation for all parties. So Stephany, welcome to the studio.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Dawn.
No, I'm so excited. But first, before we get going with Stephany, we're going to have a quick word from one of our sponsors.
What is Sig University? We are an inclusive, internationally recognized university whose mission is to advance the procurement profession while enabling students to transform their careers through our world-class certifications. Sig University offers industry-recognized certifications programs, each offering a unique set of competencies and skills that sourcing and risk professionals need to be successful. The programs provide advanced training in subjects like strategic sourcing, supplier management, third-party risk management, intelligent automation, and more. Sig University is committed to academic excellence, which is why our students are trained alongside an international cohort, engage in discussion forums, and learn from senior practitioner faculty who leverage their deep industry experience with real-world case studies. Why Sig University? It was created originally at the request of Sig members. We knew there was a lot of training out there, but nothing designed around the ever-evolving skills and competencies that the modern sourcing and risk professional needs. The program was created through collaborating with dozens of industry experts to create a curriculum that is bold, fresh, and applicable to this day and age. If you're looking to advance your knowledge and your career, join us at Sig University.
So Stephany, welcome back. What I'd love to do is spend a little bit of time having our guests get to know you as a person. Can you just tell us a little about your personal journey? I said before that you moved into this because you saw a need. You were a supply chain consultant prior to that, but just tell people about your career advancement if you don't mind.
Yeah, so my first one, I started my first business when I was 18. So definitely a born entrepreneur, sold that company. Left Quebec. I'm originally from Quebec, French Canadian, and the intent there was to learn English. Moved to the West Coast to be a ski instructor, then went to university. I definitely gravitated towards startup. My first company was a startup. Loved the energy, the entrepreneurship. Worked in a couple of larger organizations, and what I found myself in a big company in a very competitive environment is that innovation was really important. And I was spending a lot of time meeting suppliers to find innovation, and would find myself at 99.9% of the time they were not overly innovative, but innovation was such a big, requirement for us. And so, that's about 16 years ago, I was pregnant with my first daughter. I have 3 girls. My oldest one is now 15. And I sat down and wrote, what are the things that are bringing me energy? And so I want to, focus on things that I really enjoy. And it all came back to opportunities and also making connection. And so that started my first business called Matchbook, which was initially focused on finding innovation to help solve business challenges. Mm-hmm. What I quickly found is that it looked a lot like strategic sourcing. And many of my customers we're talking 15 years ago, were starting to move from traditional procurement to value creation and really looking to bridge the gap between strategic sourcing between the business that we're looking for business outcome and procurement at the time seeing as the cost saving. And I really enjoy that. I found that there was so much value within the supply base. And if we didn't have visibility of the supplier base, we're really not tapping into this massive asset that we spend so much money and investment to build. And to me, it represented hundreds of millions of dollars if we could actually do this. But what I quickly realized is that data was everywhere, but nowhere. It was so difficult. And a lot of the processes built for procurement were really around the collection of information to then be able to serve, strategies, business decision, and business outcome. And so I became, obsessed. And that took me 9 years of building a successful consulting business in this space to seeing this in front of me with every single customer I had, large companies with all the technology and the teams to companies that were just building their supply chain and procurement for the first time. And it just became to me, it was a big data problem. And I thought, data is so critical for this new, way of scaling and this digital transformation. If we can't fix data, if no one has fixed the data yet, I think this is a massive opportunity, and somehow raise my hand and turn my life upside down.
So you don't have a tech background and as part of your background.
I don't. Yeah. And I think in some ways it's benefited me because I think technology is magic and anything's possible. On the other side, it does make it more challenges sometimes for my tech team to explain, right? Some things take longer than others. Luckily for me, I have an incredible tech team. I think we have best in class, not just in our space, but we're very fortunate to be in the tech hub in Toronto here. We've got amazing engineers. We've got a very strong pool of talent for data scientists. And so in the past year, we've hired over 50 engineers, built a product team. We have very strong, data scientists working with us, all really passionate about solving this problem, right? That I saw 15 years ago, and the markets continue to validate that data is so critical to digitizing procurement. And I think procurement is getting there. So that's very exciting.
It is exciting. So you talk about building this team. Can you tell me, for our audience, if they're not familiar with your company, what exactly is TealBook?
So we're a data platform. We've been focusing our technology on enriching supplier data without needing the suppliers to come to a portal. We've been looking for ways to collect information in hundreds of millions of different data sources to create a profile of every B2B company in the world in a way that's digitized, that's autonomously enriched, focusing on attributes that are needed across all the procurement activities, all the systems, and getting deeper, so better quality across those attributes and expanding the number of attributes required across different business activities and requirements. And so we've always been a data company. I think some of the maybe where we confuse the market, and I'll be first to say that it's been a bit of our split personality, is that when you talk about data and what you need the data for, if you talk to 100 customers, they'll all give you different reasons why they need data based on their priorities, their requirements, their technology stack. And so identifying business case that were tangible so that we could explain this new technology. Like nobody knew really much about machine learning 6 years ago. Even 4 years ago, we were still educating people on machine learning and data architecture and what that means. And so, as we focus on business case, like use case that were tangible to show that a data-led transformation will surface and automate and accelerate business outcome, we start with things that had low risk, high reward, and supplier diversity was a really good one because we could automate the collection of certificate. We could do a supplier match, unify back to a record, match it to the master data and show significant underreported spend, and start showing suppliers that are potentially small and diverse, not certified to, right? So we could start growing a much bigger impact. So that's something that I think procurement as business people could wrap their head around, could buy our technology and start their data journey. We're moving quite fast across more capabilities and what's sort of still very tangible and delivered through our interface to procurement teams can choose the data they want. They can apply their business rules and they can API our data into whatever they want, right? And so it could be a data cloud that they've already created. It could be a low code, no code workflow that they've implemented. It could be one of the 1,000 new digital solutions that they are excited about. It could be a legacy system. And so that's giving our customers a flexibility to get the best data, digitize the way that they're creating collecting supplier record, enriching it, and distributing across the system. So you have consistent information. Now, how the data is consumed can be through software. It could be consumed, it could be validated, it could be ignored. But you're kind of flipping the model upside down, where before you use the portal to collect the information, now you can actually push the data into even a portal or software to make sure that you're getting the most out of that software. And ultimately, it's all about driving better business outcomes.
So your API, so just help me, because I want to make sure everyone understands. Your API then connects to whatever source to pay or procure to pay system I might be using. And I can then ask TealBook for what kind of information I want on my suppliers, supplier diversity, their risk profile, Dun & Bradstreet, geopolitical issues, all of that. I mean, I get to choose which data is going to go into my data cloud.
That's right. So we have what we call packs. So we have 5 data packs today. And what we're introducing is more transparency on attributes and data packs that we're really good at. We're not good at everything, and there's no perfect data, right? So that's very important. But what we can show is how many signals, especially as we're scaling our data pipeline, we can have more sources of data pointing to an attribute to say, hey, there's a lot of places with high credibility pointing to the same thing. That confidence in that attribute is really high. And so our clients can choose that data and say, hey, based on the confidence of that data, I don't need to look at it. I just want to make sure that it populates the field in my ERP or my source to pay system or my contract management system. If there's data that's not good enough, that we would call still in progress, what we found is that our clients have said, hey, do you want to retire that data entirely? Or would you want to do diligence? And so we're in the process right now of building the requirements for clients to do that diligence on the records that are not, strong enough. That would be the strongest signal for them to then automate once a record has been validated. So I don't get too in the technical piece of this, but I think it's the flexibility to choose the data that you need. And we can advise on where we should start, where we're really good at. But what you have to remember is that we have a team here dedicated to finding new data source, to getting, better attributes, to getting more attributes. So those data packs are just getting better, sort of getting the Tesla. And then every month you get new features. Yeah. It's very similar. You buy the platform, and what we're doing in combination, with us, our customers, our partners, all of that data contributes to giving our customers, more automation, better data quality. They can even put that into their BI tool if they already have dashboard and or supplement with our UI. We do have some reporting and some analytics capabilities, but it's really supplemental versus us selling the UI. We're really selling the data.
And then you're automatically refreshing it. So if I have a certificate, for example, Sig is WeBank certified, and we have to get recertified every year. Would you be able to get our new certificate so people can just immediately have it in their system?
That's right. And there's certificates that don't need to be refreshed all the time. And so there's things that are being refreshed, monthly, quarterly, annually. Of course, we want to move to real time. That's going to take some time for us to get to real time refresh across, millions of attributes. But we're very careful on the suppliers that have the most touch with our customers. There's some of our suppliers that have hundreds of customers and some have 0 customers. So we'll spend more time on the high touch suppliers. Suppliers are most alike. So our algorithms look for similar companies, which powers our search engine, which people know us for supplier discovery. We'll start looking at suppliers that are most similar to your incumbent, so that when you're doing discovery over time, it gets more intelligent. You're looking for suppliers that are most similar with more, refresh, better attributes and things like that. So we're a bit strategic of how we go after it. We monitor about 12 million global suppliers today. We have 5.
Oh, I was just going to ask, 12 million?
That's right. And then we've got 5.4 million profiles. That means those are our machines have identified enough information. It may not be all perfect. There may be a few millions that are, there's information in there. It's populated with the basic attributes. But once we have enough attributes to be of value to a customer, that's when the profile becomes available in a digital format.
So your software, your ability to go out and scrape the world to collect this information, it has to work in multiple languages. It has to work in all different currencies.
So we can translate currencies on multiple language. We have focus because of the algorithms on English language first. And so it's not that it's hard. It's just that we've prioritized right now English languages on the baseline of what we're building to then expand into multiple languages. And so that's going to happen. But right now we focus on English countries. If there's subtype, we can also bring the subsite information from a supplier, either on a hierarchy or the company itself.
And now, and this is just because I'm naturally curious now, do you also monitor news feeds on when the company's in the news, making news, press releases?
No, our view is that there's a lot of third-party risk management solutions that already do that. And so our clients would supplement or feed a third-party risk solution. It will eventually we'll add that, but it was not a priority in the business case of our customers.
Perfect. Okay, so let's go on to some other corporate priorities, because they are shifting. And you and I talked earlier, and we were talking about all these black swan events and how the world is changing and continuing to change, rapidly changing. And so priorities have to change as well. And it makes it really difficult to scale more with less budget, which is what we're hearing from most procurement people. And then we still want to have good quality data. Is that going to be overcome through TealBook?
Yeah, because you turn the light on to your master data. And so when you talk to a company who's never had their visibility into their entire supplier base, they'll know their 20% or their top suppliers, but a lot of the risk, a lot of the innovation, a lot of the opportunities are in that longer tail. And if you outsource it or you're not having visibility, you can't optimize it. And so that's a pretty big win, is just seeing your entire vendor master. And that will highlight some initial opportunities. And so maybe areas of duplications, we do have some risk components. You may see categories where you have a lot of overlap. And so we've seen companies who had 4,000 marketing suppliers, and out of that was 800 market research suppliers to 400 recruiting firms, right? It's pretty eye-opening when you're seeing this. And now you've got to maintain all these companies. You may be paying a pretty significant number with no economies of scales. And we did a research, it was with Wakefield, that showed, now we'll debate this and we can debate this in great length, because I had heard a much lower number at the time, but when Wakefield did it, it was about $2,400 per record, the cost of resources to maintaining the data across all the different business functions, et cetera, and systems. And so that's really expensive. So there's ways to consolidate that spend. This is bad cost of doing business. You don't need to maintain records, especially if we can narrow it down and focus on suppliers that are driving the most value. On the flip side, you may see categories where it's pretty stale. Not a lot of competition has been introduced. You may be at a lower count from a category perspective than your competitors or other companies in your vertical. And so that's a great strategy, is to start looking at, like, hey, how do we introduce contingent suppliers? How do we drive competitiveness? How do we ensure that we have visibility so that when the business is faced with a renewal, that we can actually influence positively to go to market and drive as much value? So to me, I think it's just really important, is have your baseline, see your supplier base for what it is, identify those gaps and opportunities, then prioritize. Where do you want to start? And that's why I said business case, where, low risk, but high reward, because you're publishing your sustainability or your diversity spend to your shareholders, to your executive team, and they set goals that you can actually show and measure the impact of your activities and the impact of your spend. That's really powerful. And so those are ways that's more tangible that you can start that data foundation journey.
Oh, that's incredible. So you also talked about being the source of truth around systems that democratize supplier data at scale. Can you explain that phrase a little bit more?
Yeah, if you're familiar with Eloise Epstein's spider graph, I think most of us have seen it now. She published, the first presentation I saw of her was where she starts showing, like, each software as this little pile of data underneath it, and they don't connect, to moving to a more integrated view, to moving to a data foundation that has an interchangeable, agile ecosystem of whatever solution. And so when you look at the traditional way of, I'm going to buy software, it's going to have a portal, the suppliers are going to come because I'm this brand name and they're going to come, and they don't come, then you're doing a lot of work to supplement the fact that you don't have good data in that system. And it's expensive, it's manual, and the data changes at a speed and scale that manual effort just don't cut it anymore. And so kind of moving to that Epstein first, like, data silo to a fully interchangeable ecosystem, especially with all the new startups that are coming to market, that makes it quite exciting to look and pilot. If you don't have a data foundation, then you're actually just implementing all these disparate, you're continuing these little piles of data under each software versus, from the foundation is taking data, turning the light on and feeding those data into whatever system you want. That's democratizing information. That's enabling you to build a much more agile, much more flexible, interchangeable technology stack, because you're not stuck with the software, because you're not depending on software for the data. You're depending on software to workflow a process, but not for the data itself, which is, it's sort of liberating because you don't have to necessarily buy in and be stuck with a solution for years and years. You could just plug and play the best in class. And when the new AI sourcing or the new technology, Web3, whatever comes out, and you want to, try that and you want to accelerate some of your business processes, then you can do it because you're not slave to the data being in that software. Make that really, really, friction heavy change.
Yeah, the other part too is like, I can't tell you how many individual people write to us each year and ask us to update our WeBank certificate. And these are people typing emails asking us to update it, where then they get a scan and they're uploading it into God knows where. I mean, if they all could just go to TealBook and see that you've got the latest certificate, not only is it time consuming on our end to have to answer these one by one, but I think about that poor person whose job is to go out there and look for these insurance certificates and WeBank certificates. I mean, that is not a job that I would ever put on.
But when I speak at conferences, often it's the suppliers that chase me down to talk to me because to share that story. And what we found is that the ROI, and I'm not taking away from the associations and the agencies because they do so much more to support small and diverse businesses, but the business of charging thousands of dollars to get certified when you're a woman-owned business, the resources associated with it, and we've heard it's a 5-year ROI. Like, no wonder only 5% of businesses that meet the requirements are certified. That means that 95% of businesses don't bother, don't have the resources, the time, they don't understand the value. So when you make a commitment to $1 billion in spend with small diverse suppliers, you're basically just saying, I'm limiting myself to engaging, acknowledging, reporting 5% of the entire ecosystem. And so, to remove that burden on suppliers, one, to be certified if they qualify. So we've embedded a self-certification process. One, we can identify them, or customers can invite those suppliers to self-certify for free. It takes 20 minutes. It's an authenticated process, and more of our customers recognize it or use it as a pipeline. If you don't recognize it, say, hey, if a supplier will go through that process, they're more likely to be receptive to, getting certified by an agency. And two, you're democratizing small, diverse businesses in this case to be in front of opportunities when it's fully integrated into your sourcing process. If you're using our search engine and whatever sourcing tool you have, you can actually find those suppliers, you can create lists, you can drive accountability to category managers to make sure that, one, are they leveraging your existing relationship? Are they including small, diverse businesses? Are they including sustainable businesses? Are they including enough competition? All of that information drives more accountability to drive the types of changes. But if you don't have access to the data and it's behind gated database, it's just really hard. By the time the business has the need and the diversity person goes through all the databases and then, do I go to my veteran owned? Do I go to my women owned? Do I go to my small businesses? And then it takes time. Well, usually the PO has already been issued. And so if you can accelerate access and democratize that information, it's really powerful.
Very powerful. And so folks, I want you to hear it well, is that this is not just a supplier registry. I've had some people ask me that before. It's just a really fancy supplier registry. No, it's so much more. You have to, if you have not taken a peek at TealBook, you need to, because once you take a peek, you're going to want to swallow it whole. You're going to want the whole thing. It is absolutely fantastic. The people, our members that use it, absolutely rave about you and TealBook. So I'm really, really proud of what you've been able to develop and do for our industry.
Thank you so much, Dawn.
So Stephany, I'd love to invite you back. We're out of time for today, but I'd love to invite you back and talk more about your journey at a later date. Would you be open to that?
Yeah, and I look forward to sharing the stage on you at SIG at the conference in a few weeks.
Yeah, me too. So, folks, thank you for joining today's podcast. You can hear Stephany again. I'm going to make sure she's invited back and come center stage. You'll also be able to see her at the Fall Summit this year, center stage as a keynote. So I'm really excited about that as well. So everyone have a wonderful morning, afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And Stephany, thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Dawn, for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the Sourcing Industry Landscape podcast through iTunes or your favorite podcast app. Want to nominate someone for an interview? Email us at info@sig.org.